2023 has been an electric year of college football. However, the one thing that everyone wants to talk about is how awesome it would be if this year had a 12-team college football playoff field. Unfortunately, that doesn't start till next year, but that doesn't mean we can't speculate. That's exactly what we're doing today, checking out what the field would look like after Week 7, according to 24/7 Sports, and I'm going to give you my picks and predictions based on what these teams would look like in late December towards the end of the season. Let's do it, starting right now. Oregon versus Texas. Now, these first couple games, I would say 4 games, they're all on campus, so that plays a really big factor into it. Oregon at home in Autzen. They don't have as much talent as Texas. However, they do have the veteran leadership of quarterback Bo Nix. Being in Autzen Stadium, I think Oregon wins this game. They move on. Next game, Air Force at Washington. Funny enough, I made a video a week ago talking about Air Force making the college football playoff in 2023 in the 4-team bracket. Yes, they're the best group of 5 team right now. That's why they would be the number 12 seed. And just talking about the season, I think they have a really good chance of going undefeated and shaking things up and making a group of 5. But in this scenario, they would be making the playoffs, taking on Washington. Now, they run a triple option sort of offense, which is great because that keeps the ball out of playmakers' hands, such as Michael Penix for Washington, Rome Odunze, and Jalen McMillan. However, that wouldn't be able to last the whole game. I think Air Force would do a good job in the first half, hanging in there, running the ball. It would be a style that Washington's not used to seeing, but in the end, Washington's just too talented, too high-flying. I think they would beat Air Force by 2 touchdowns and move on to the second round of the college football playoffs. Number 7, Penn State, and number 10, USC. Funny enough, I ripped into USC in my last video and had a field day on how they shouldn't be in the top 10, and they shouldn't. USC is a legitimately bad team with their defense. They are going to have 2, maybe even 3 losses in the Pac-12 this year, but this is just a scenario in Week 7 where they would be, and this is going to be funny, but I'm going to say it. I have more faith in Air Force beating Washington in this bracket than USC beating Penn State. That just shows how bad USC and how crippled they are by their defense. Penn State all day. Penn State at home. Maybe they could wide out that game. That would be amazing. Beaver Stadium, over 100,000 fans. Ohio State and Alabama in the 6 versus 11 matchup. If you had these teams play for me in Week 1, Week 2 of the college football season, I'm picking Ohio State, no question. However, put Nick Saban in a playoff situation. I don't care that Alabama has Jaden Milroe. I don't care that they're not the Alabama team of the last few years. In a playoff situation, Nick Saban, he's winning that game on the road in Columbus. Give me Alabama. Moving on to the second round, number 1, Georgia, and number 8, Oregon. In my heart, I really want to go with Oregon on this one. However, I'm going to have to use my brain. I got Georgia. This is why. Georgia has not played well this season, I'll admit it. They should not be the number 1 team in the country. I talked about that in my previous video. They've been absolutely sleepwalking through their schedule. They have an easy SEC schedule, so they don't have to do much. They haven't been dominating their games like they should. They just had a good game against Kentucky, and I think they finally found their groove. I think they found their stroke with Carson Beck at quarterback, and I think this Georgia team is going to wake up from their slumber, and if we're talking about this game as a December game, Georgia is going to be ready to play. Just too much for Oregon. It's just going to be like that season opening game in 2021 where we saw the Bulldogs dominate, absolutely dominate in Atlanta. Give me Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs to move on to the Final Four. Number 5 versus number 4. I think this would be the best matchup in the entire playoffs. Washington and Oklahoma, both high-flying offenses. They do it in their own way. Washington, you're going to throw it down the field, 5 wide outs, and one of your 6'5" wide receivers go up and catch the ball. Pinpoint accuracy from Michael Penix. And Oklahoma with Dylan Gabriel, who's going to compete in that Heisman conversation with Penix. But they're a little more balanced on offense, and they're a little more balanced overall in the game with their defense as well. A top 10 scoring offense, a top 10 scoring defense as we're talking right now. But as Drake said, dogs will be dogs. Give me Washington on this one. I think they would win in a super high-scoring game. Yes, I know Oklahoma has a better defense against Washington. I know they will be able to get some pressure on Michael Penix, which he typically does not get pressure. He's only been sacked 4 times in his entire career at Washington during the last few years. But just give me that Huskies offense in a playoff game, the quarterfinals. Washington wins, and they move on to face Georgia. Oof, would that be a good one? Michigan and Penn State, number 2 versus number 7 in the college football playoff quarterfinals. Yes, 2 conference rivals, conference brothers, division rivals, whatever you want to call them. I got Michigan in this game. However, Michigan is in the upper echelon of programs, and I don't think that Penn State has quite made it there yet. They're a good staple of a top 10 team. They're just not good enough to compete with the Michigans, the Georgias, and the other teams of the world. So I'm going to go Michigan in this game. It's a neutral site one. Michigan moves on. Number 11, Alabama, and number 3, Florida State. Wow, this is feeling like a Cinderella story, a double-digit seed in the quarterfinals and possibly moving on. Yes, I know it's Alabama, so it's weird to see them as an underdog, but I got Alabama in this game. Florida State has been trending downward ever since the start of the season. They had that big win over LSU, which we thought was a monumental win. LSU hasn't looked as good. A very close win over Clemson. Clemson has lost games as well, and Alabama's the opposite way. After they lost to Texas, I thought they were going to be done. I thought they were going to lose to Ole Miss. I thought they were going to lose to Texas A&M, but they've actually proven that they're a really good team. They've changed their play style. They're a more defensive team. They're not a high-flying offense like they have been in years past. And again, Nick Saban in the playoffs. So I'm picking this Cinderella. Alabama beating Florida State. I'm sorry, Seminole fans. I got to do it to you. Alabama moves on to the quarterfinal. We got our Final Four. Let's go. Georgia versus Washington. Georgia's more physical. Georgia's more talented. But what is Kirby Smart going to do when he runs up against the offense of Kalen DeBoer? And the answer to that, he's going to lose. Yes, I know Georgia fans are going to get heated in the comments. They got heated on the last video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love you guys, and I love you guys when you comment. But Georgia has looked vulnerable this season. They've looked beatable. I mentioned in the last matchup versus Oregon that I think they would fix things and get things together before the college football playoff, but I just think they've left the door too wide open. Washington studies that film. Washington beats Georgia. Michigan and Alabama. Can Alabama keep their Cinderella run alive against the juggernaut of the Michigan Wolverines? Michigan is just so good in every single facet of the game. They're well-rounded. They're well-coached. Ever since Jim Harbaugh got back from his little COVID leave or whatever you want to call that with the program, they've looked unstoppable. I really like the way they play. They keep it under the radar, however. They're not going to wow you. They're not going to jump out of the page like a team like Washington will. However, they're going to beat Alabama. Alabama, this would be their 3rd game in the college football playoff. Michigan did have that rest. I think that would go against Alabama, and Michigan's going to move on to the college football playoff championship against the Washington Huskies. What a good one. Washington and Michigan for all the marbles, the national title game. Will the dream live on for Washington, or will Michigan finally get a title under Jim Harbaugh? Washington wins the game. The magic doesn't stop here for all the reasons that I've mentioned before. I think that offense is too much for Michigan. Their defense just does enough to get by. Washington wins the national title here in our simulated 12-team bracket. That means nothing. Yes, guys, this bracket is totally for fun, and it will not happen this year, but it's a great time, so we did it anyways. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been Saturday Shenanigans, your home for unfiltered college football content. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I do this for fun, but it means so much to me. Thank you guys so much for the recent support. I've been seeing a lot of new faces, a lot of new comments on the last 2 videos, and it seriously means so much. It's got me smiling. It's got me blushing, whatever you want to say. Keep it going, guys. I appreciate it. I'm so excited to watch some college football this weekend. My Week 7 picks video should be out soon. Stay tuned. Let's go. I'll see you guys soon.